and to our witnesses today. I really do want to give a special shout out to the Federal workers at the EPA, because I just think they do a tremendous job protecting our air and our water, and I just want you to know how much we value that and appreciate their hard work. Under this administration, the agency has actually instituted greenhouse gas reporting programs, issued guidelines essential to stopping and dumping of waste from mountaintop removal in valleys and streams, and set stricter standards for vehicle fuel efficiency. It has been an amazingly productive EPA. And in the current budget request, the Chesapeake Bay is actually seeing a substantial increase in funding from $70 million to an additional $3 million over the FY15 request. And I just want you to know how much we welcome that as Marylanders, because I think this fragile ecosystem that is so important to the vitality of the states in the region is on the road to recovery, and that is in large part because of the partnership, true partnership, that we have had with the Federal Government. One of my concerns today, though, has to do with the Clean Water State Revolving Funds, because I think they are also key to maintaining our nation's wastewater needs. And so it was kind of disappointing to see that there has been a 23% reduction from the FY15 enacted level. And let me tell you how those funds work. So for the states that receive those funds, they actually go into the structures and landscapes and everything else that actually contribute to the health of the Chesapeake Bay. And so on the one hand, we are increasing the funding for the bay and its restoration, but on the other, we are taking away from the Clean Water State Revolving Funds. And so I really urge the Administration to do some reconsideration here, and I think that we certainly should do that here in the Congress. I also want to point to another area that has been really important to me as a member of Congress, and that is green infrastructure. We have heard some discussion about that today. I think it is cost-effective, it is efficient, and the demand for green infrastructure grants we heard coming out of the Recovery Act and beyond has been over the top. And so jurisdictions recognize that too. So thanks for the 10% increase in funding levels there. I want to get to, if we could, there has been a lot of discussion about the EPA rulemaking and a lot of misconception about that. And so in the time remaining, I want to give you, to our Deputy Administrator, the opportunity to describe the rulemaking process, the numbers of comments that have been received, the changes that have actually been made from the beginning to now the proposed rule based on those comments. And then, I think that we've been going through about 200 days of comments, which is sort of unheard of in a rulemaking process, and yet those are the kind of accommodations that the EPA has made because of the concern with this rulemaking. So I thank you for that, but I want you to take some time and explain to us what the process is, where you are going to go, and the level of attention that you have paid to make sure that this rulemaking finally clears up a decade-long process that multiple administrations have been engaged in. And I will leave you the remainder of my time.
Well, thank you, Ms. Edwards, and in particular, thank you for the kind words of EPA. As many of you know, most of my working career has been in this building or in the Dirksen building. And when I went to EPA, I also never found a more dedicated set of professionals, and they work very hard to serve all of us and keep our waters clean and safe. The process for doing the Clean Water Rule really has been one of the most extensive, both in terms of time and resources for outreach, that this agency has ever contemplated. I went through earlier the fact that the agency has been involved through a series of guidance documents in trying to address the Supreme Court cases, and on those received hundreds of thousands of comments through the public comment period. We also engaged the public through a series of outreach meetings before this current rule went out, including states and local governments, and also I should have mentioned to Mr. Davis the small business community as well. While we did not think that the Regulatory Flexibility Act applied, we reached out to the small business community regardless. We then, with this rule, as I said, was put out on our public website the day it was signed on March 25th. It was out there for review until April 21st when it hit the Federal Register, and that started the clock for the comment period, which we extended twice. We extended it the first time because there were a lot of appeals. We put it out for 90 days. We extended it for 90 days. And then we wanted people to be able to have an opportunity before the comment period closed to actually look at the recommendations of the Science Advisory Board that were reviewing both our rule and the science that supported our rule. So we then extended the comment period again so that people would have a full 4 weeks to review the Science Advisory Board before their comments were due on the proposed rule. During that period of comment, we held over 400 meetings, the majority of which were around the country. We also, as we said, received in excess of 1 million comments. We held specific meetings with stakeholder groups, targeting in particular state and local governments because of the unique role that they play. The states as co-regulators and municipalities as partners as well, because the bulk of our water quality improvements comes from municipalities. So we reached out to them. Since that time, we've continued to reach out to people. We will be reaching out again before the rule goes final so that people can anticipate it. We will also be addressing issues such as the transition period, grandfathering of existing determinations, how it is that you deal with this transition, what is the opportunity for somebody who seeks a permit to say, well, I may have a jurisdictional determination, but I'd like to have it reconsidered under the new rule. So those will be transition questions as well that we plan to undertake.
Thanks, and I've greatly overextended my time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Graves.
Mr. Stanislaus, I hope you're not feeling neglected today. I bet Ken's a